Hi, good day everyone. I am James Christopher Biribuyas and today we'll discuss about how to properly recharge AC refrigerant with the help of this reference video from ChrisFix YouTube channel. And to recharge AC refrigerant properly at home, you need proper tools to use and this is all you need.
Of manifold gauges, which tell you the pressure of the air conditioning system, which is very important. We also pull a vacuum on the AC system and fill up the AC system through this, so you need to have a set of manifold gauges. Then you're going to need a vacuum pump, because we're going to have to pull a vacuum on the AC system. We're going to need refrigerant. I'll explain how much and what kind in a second. And then you're going to need a nozzle to tap the refrigerant. In some cases, you might need a digital scale to measure how much refrigerant you're putting in. And then anytime you're working on the air conditioning system, make sure you use gloves and safety glasses. Because if any refrigerant leaks out, you don't want it to cause frostbite and you don't want it to blind you. With these tools here, you could do a proper AC system recharge.
Since ikaw may mangunay og recharge sa AC refrigerant sa sakyanan nimo, dapat makibaw ka sa saktong sukod sa refrigerant og unsa nga refrigerant ang kailangan. So dali ra na siya mahibaw-an. Nara na siya sticker nga guide na naadool sa engine or naa ilawom sa hood sa sakyanan.
We have it right here. And you can see on this sticker it says we're using HFC 134A, which is the same thing as R134A, which is the most common in today's cars. It's better for the environment than the old refrigerant. And it'll also tell you how much you're going to have to add. And you can see here it says we're going to have to add anywhere between 1.26 pounds and 1.39 pounds of refrigerant. So if you convert that from pounds to ounces, there's 16 ounces in a pound. That means we're going to need about 22 ounces of refrigerant. Now, most of the refrigerant that I found in the store came in 12 ounces. So that means we're going to have to get 2 cans, which is 24 ounces. And because we need 22, not 24 ounces, that's why we're going to be using a scale, to make sure we only use 22 ounces, not the whole 24. The other thing is, you can see here, we have our 134A, which is what we need. And then finally, the last thing is, this refrigerant does not have any additives. There's no oil, there's no leak-stopping additives, there's none of that. You want straight refrigerant. So that's how you find what refrigerant you're going to need.
So sa pag-recharge sa atong AC system, nara kay duha ka importanteng butang nga kailangan buhaton. First is ang pag-vacuum sa imong AC system para matangtang tanang air and moisture nga naa sa imong system kay makadaot man na ang tanang moisture nga mahabilin sa imong AC system og mag-recharge ka kay ma-weaken ang imong mga components. Then next is ang pag-recharge na mismo sa imong AC refrigerant.
Pretty simple, so let's begin. So the first thing to do is connect our manifold gauge to the AC system. You want to make sure that all these valves are in the closed position. This side right here is the low pressure side of the gauge. This right here is the high pressure side of the gauge. And the middle is where you're going to pull a vacuum and then add the refrigerant in later on.
So sa pag-connect nimo sa imong mga nozzle sa imong manifold gauge padong sa mga kanya fittings, di na ka masayop kay ang low masakto siya sa low o ang high sa higher siya. Never siya masakto ang high sa low o ang low sa high. Then ang cap sa iyang fittings kay naapod siya mga label. So di na ka masayop na.
To connect these adapters, you just push down and slide it over and then let go. And we're going to connect our low pressure, which is this blue line, to our low pressure port right here. Make sure it's in there good. Get our high pressure line here, which is the red, and we're going to connect it right down here to our high pressure line. Good. Now back at our gauges, again these are closed off. We're just going to come over here and we're going to open these up. Open the low pressure side. Good. And open the high pressure side. With the high and low pressure side opened up, we can come over here. You can see here at the low side it's at 0 psi, which is exactly what we want. And you look here at the high side, it's at 0 psi, which is exactly what we want. So there's no pressure in the system, obviously. We know that because we replaced the compressor. Now we can start pulling a vacuum. Alright, the last line we have to connect is this yellow line, which is going to go to our vacuum pump. And I'm just going to move this down because my vacuum pump's going to be on the ground. You can see my vacuum pump is right here. Take off that, connect our line. You don't need to tighten these more than hand tight. Don't get a pliers or something and really crank these down. There's gaskets in here that'll do the job for you. So just hand tighten all the connections. Good. If there's any refrigerant in your system, make sure you go to a garage and get the system professionally evacuated so you don't let this gas out into the atmosphere. This refrigerant is pretty nasty stuff, so be environmentally responsible. So now that we have everything connected, these are still in the off position. We have our low pressure line connected securely, that's opened up. We have our high pressure line connected securely, that's opened up. And then now we have our yellow vacuum line connected securely. Let's go turn on the vacuum pump. Okay, so I'm gonna go turn on the pump. We can see here nothing has happened yet. I'm gonna open up both of these valves and you're gonna hear the pump work, and you're also gonna see this get sucked down. So I'm just going to be focusing right here because this has the vacuum on the gauge. Even though this goes below 0, it doesn't have the actual readings. And you can see we're almost at 30 inches of mercury for vacuum, which is exactly where we want to be. So after letting this run for a few minutes, there's just about 30 inches of mercury of vacuum. I'm going to close these, and I'm going to close our vacuum pump. Now I'm going to let this sit for about an hour, and what we want to see is we want to see this stay at 30 inches of mercury. If this stays at 30 and doesn't leak at all, then that means our system is completely sealed, which is exactly what we want. We want a completely sealed system. So I'll come back in about an hour and we'll see if this moved. Okay, 1 hour later, and this looks pretty much identical. It looks like nothing at all leaked out. This is great. It means our job was done correctly, and we have no AC system leaks anymore. Now that we know there's no leaks, we want to continue to pull a vacuum for 45 minutes. So I'm going to go and turn the vacuum back on. And I'm going to open up both of these valves again. Good. And now we're sucking vacuum for 45 minutes. This is going to evacuate all the moisture and air out of the system, so it's nice and dry in there. So now's a good time to go run some errands, go do something, and let the pump do its job. Alright, it's been 45 minutes, and everything is looking really good here. So what we're going to do is we're going to close off our lines here, so there's no more vacuum. Now we're going to...
So makita ninyo nga kaduha niya gi-vacuum kay importante kay nga wa gi moist nga mabilin para di madaot ang mga components. So if naa kay component nga giilisan sa imong AC system like compressor, evaporator, condenser, so kailangan nimo mag-add pod og oil in recharge nimo kay para ma-lubricate siya.
Consult your service manual on how much oil you're going to need to use. In my case, when I replaced the compressor, it came pre-oiled with the correct oil and the correct amount of oil. So I didn't have to do anything, which is really convenient. If you end up having to add oil, what you could do is you could add it through your yellow line here. And you literally just take your line and you fill it with the correct amount of oil. And then you take this line and you connect your refrigerant bottle, and then that'll get drawn in to the AC system. The oil basically lubricates the whole system, but more specifically, it lubricates the compressor so it doesn't run dry. Another thing that you should add right now is some UV dye. You add a little bit right to this line, make sure it's AC system UV dye. It's only a few bucks. Totally worth it, because if you have any future leaks, then you'll know where it's coming from, just like you saw in my leak detection video. Since I already added the UV dye when I did the leak detection video, it's in there, we don't have to do that. So in this case, I don't have to add oil, it's already pre-oiled, and I don't have to add UV dye, I already have it in there. So now we're going to go connect our refrigerant to this line. So the first thing we'll do is connect our adapter right to the refrigerant can. Make sure it's a nice tight seal. Now we're going to connect our refrigerant can to our yellow line. Okay, good. So now we're going to screw down the adapter, which will pierce the can. And with this screwed down, this is in the closed position, so no refrigerant's going to come out. Also remember that the manifold gauges are in the closed position and holding vacuum. So
karon iyahan ang ablihan ang refrigerant can gamit ang screw nga nasa adapter. Then naa may hangin sa iyang manifold gauge hose, kailangan na siya i-free. So naa may purge tip ang iyang manifold gauge hose. So kailangan na mo screwdriver. Imo na siyang i-press down until refrigerant na mo gawas.
Until the refrigerant comes out, and now we purge the system of any air. So let's go start the truck. Alright, let's go start her up. We want to make sure that the AC is on. So we're going to turn the fan on to low. AC has to be on. You want to make sure the AC is on because that means that the compressor will kick on when there's enough pressure, and that's what's going to draw in the rest of our refrigerant. Just so we can see the temperature, I'm gonna put this thermometer right up in here. You can see right now it's almost 90 degrees. So with our AC on and our fan on, let's go add the refrigerant. Next, open up the valve on the low pressure side of the manifold gauge. Now refrigerant is flowing into the system. I'm going to put this down on a cool part of the engine compartment, but you don't want to put this down on anything hot because it could heat up the can and cause an explosion, which would not be good. Now we just wait for the compressor to kick on. Perfect. It just kicked on, and you can see the low pressure side drop down to about 10 psi, while the high pressure side is slowly building pressure at around 100 psi. This will increase as we add more refrigerant. If we check the compressor, you can see it's clicked on, which is good. Now we just wait for the compressor to suck out the refrigerant from the can. When you think the can is empty, turn it over and give it a shake. You can look at the watch glass to see if any refrigerant comes out. You can see there's still some refrigerant left, so let's wait a minute or two and then check it again. A minute later, I'm pretty sure this is empty. Yep, it's empty. So let's take this off and put a new can on. Remember to close this valve here before you disconnect this can. If you leave this valve open, refrigerant's just going to come out of this yellow line. Now we could close this here all the way down so it seals off this yellow hose. Twist the new can on, and now we need to weigh it because we only need 10 ounces out of the 12 that are in this can. So get the can on the scale so it levels out, and you can see the can weighs 20 ounces exactly. We want to add 10 more ounces to the system since each can is 12 ounces, and we already added one can so far. I'm going to open up this can on the scale, and now we need to open up the manifold gauge on the low side to allow the refrigerant to get sucked in. I don't want the refrigerant to spike and go all in at once because it could turn to liquid and damage the compressor, so slowly add the refrigerant. After a little, we could open up the valve the rest of the way to get the can down to 10 ounces. Alright, we're almost at 10 ounces, and I'm going to close this valve up. So you saw it go down to 10 ounces. That's 22 total ounces, and the system is completely and properly filled.
And after naman sa pag-add sa exact amount sa refrigerant nga imong kailangan, pwede nimo tantawon imong manifold gauge. Pero don't forget nga kailangan nimo i-close ang mga valve para di na siya masudlan og moisture. Og syempre, ang cap sa iyang fittings kailangan nimo ibalik para wala gyud moist nga makasuod balik.
System. Good. And good. And we are done. Alright, so that's how you charge an AC system. Let's go check out the temperature real quick. Look at that. 42 to 43 degrees in there. That is beautiful. That's exactly what we want. Way better than the 90 degrees that was coming out of there before when the compressor was bad. And that is how you properly recharge your air conditioning system.
Unta, nakasabot mo sa ako ang gi-explain og thank you kay Chris Fix sa iyang video nga gigamit na ako as a reference. So, pwede mo like sa iyang video og thank you sa tanan.